He pulled me aside. He actually asked me, do you know of any, chefs that aren't plant-based themselves? They still eat meat, but they specialise in plant-based cooking. And I was like, I could potentially help. He's like, yeah, well, what experience do you have? I'm like, well, I trained with Gordon Ramsay and I spent about 7 years working with Paul McCartney cooking plant-based food, and then just kind of dropped the mic.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. It wasn't all that long ago that plant-based diets were mocked, especially in a restaurant or hospitality setting. Relegated to a fancy salad or pasta dish, the offerings were limited and never really taken seriously. But we all eat vegetables, and most of us live lives not that far removed from plant-based diets, as well as a swell of people realising the benefits of one. Scott Findlay is the executive chef of Flave restaurants. Scott, how you going?
Yeah, good. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you on the show. Plant-based diets and restaurants seem far more commonplace now, but your whole career has kind of been in that realm. What's it been like seeing the evolution and acceptance of it?
Yeah, well, I first got into plant-based cooking 2004 when I first started working with on the first tour with Paul McCartney. So I spent about 7 years. Yeah, he was the one that got me into it at the start. Yeah.
Well, take us back to that time. Like, what was it like for you as a chef, being introduced to that and opening your mind to that world?
Well, yeah, I'd just done a couple of years working with Gordon Ramsay in London, and that was very much, I guess, meat focused. But yeah, I learned some amazing techniques in cooking with Gordon, and then went off to go do a world tour with Paul McCartney, who the tour was all plant based. So he was he was plant based. He would make the whole crew eat plant based as well, but. Paul likes the taste and flavour and texture of meat and fish, so we had to recreate that using vegetables. And then you've got all the roadies that are, solid meat eaters, so they're on the road for, 6 months at a time, and they need to not compromise that flavour and texture and just still get the cravings. So it just satisfied them.
Are there any stories or even dishes that you created in that time that you can tell us about?
Yeah, there's hundreds. For sure. There's a good recipe. There's a couple of recipes that's on the Flave menu, which I created for Paul back in the day. Probably one of the first ones was like a plant-based meatball. Paul loves the taste of like meatballs and burgers, and so I recreated an Italian-style meatball when I was in Italy in Rome. It's just started with just loads of sauteed mushrooms and garlic and bound with hemp seeds and plant-based meat, and that recipe's kind of evolved since 2004. I keep adding different ingredients, and the last time I worked with Paul, I think it was 2010. His wife Nancy actually asked for the recipe so she could make it from him at home when I wasn't there. It's pretty cool.
What was it like for you as a chef transitioning from that meat world? Were there challenges trying to explore the realms of just keeping to plant-based?
Yeah, I mean, you're in a different country every day sometimes. You're going through Europe, you're in Russia, you can't really speak the language. You learn a few different words, but also, you're looking at, especially cooking plant-based, you've got all these products that are written in Russian, and you got to go through every product and make sure there's no plant-based animal products. So you got a translator going through everything just to make sure. And then once you go into the markets in Russia and you go into these amazing places, and you've got a base kind of menu of what you're going to be cooking that day, but then you go to the markets and see some amazing ingredients, and it's just kind of ready, steady, cook every day. Go to the markets, and then would have to design the kitchen. We'd design the kitchen every morning, which would be backstage. So we'd unpack our ovens, set everything up, and then cook breakfast, lunch, dinner, pack it all back down, put it into the truck or go on the plane overseas, and we'd jump on the tour bus and do it all over again.
You lived a pretty amazing life for a period of time, and I want to explore that after this. But take us back to when you were young. What sort of role did food play in your family?
Mum's a really good cook. Dad's a great cook. My grandpa my grandpa and granddad were both really good cooks, but especially my mum's father, grandpa, he was English, but yeah, an amazing cook and like super, like he taught me a lot. From a young age, just cooking in the kitchen, different dishes. He's from Yorkshire in England, so the classic roasts and all that kind of. But yeah, he also taught me how to keep the kitchen clean, and he'd be cooking all day, but by the end of the meal, everything just before he would serve up the meal, the whole dishes would be done. But yeah, he taught me a lot. And then I guess kind of mum and dad were both big travelers. They traveled around the world for years, and just as a young kid, just looking through their photo albums, and I was like, I want to travel. I want to go to Egypt. I want to go to these amazing places. And mum's like, well, if you need a job, you can travel. And I know you like cooking, and people always need to eat. So if you get a job as a chef, you can get a job anywhere around the world. So that's when I got the passion to be to study as a chef, and then to get overseas.
Well, take us back to the early years of when you first started chefing. What were some of the real sort of integral moments or influences on you?
I studied Napier, New Zealand. I did my chef course there, like a diploma in culinary arts. At the same time, I was working in a fine dining winery, Salini Estate. So yeah, it was pretty full on during doing a full time job and doing college, compact into 2 years. But yeah, pretty much as soon as I got my diploma, I went overseas. I went surfing in Bali for 6 weeks, and then as you do, and then moved to the Gold Coast. Worked there for a year in a restaurant in Tedder Ave, and then made my way over to London.
What was the kitchen experiences like for you in London compared to what you were used to?
It was pretty full on. It was like a war zone. I mean, I always wanted to work with Gordon Ramsay. I always talked about it. And I first moved over, stayed with my grandparents for a couple of months in Yorkshire. Worked at a little pub there, and I got a bit bored and went down to London. Decided this is the place where I want to be, and saw Gordon was opening up a new restaurant, the Connaught Hotel in Mayfair. So went in for an interview, and they said, "Come on board. We're building the kitchen for the next 2 months, but we'll put you at Claridge's for a few months while we're building the kitchen." And worked with some amazing chefs at Claridge's. Worked with Josh Emmett, another Kiwi chef, Mark Sargent, and then Gordon was in the kitchen quite a bit as well. So learned a lot there. And then I moved over to the Connaught, which was. Yeah, it was pretty full on. Doing an opening for one of Gordon's restaurants. You got the camera crew there filming a TV show. The Connaught travel at the top for 6 weeks while we're it was just crazy. It was full on. But I learned a lot.
There aren't many people on the planet that don't know Gordon Ramsay, and they know of the fierceness of his kitchens in the past and a bit of a hot head, but you've had personal experiences of working with him. Do you have any stories of what it's really like to work with Gordon and the impact he had on you?
Yeah, I mean, it was all about the food being perfect. And, if the food's not perfect, it's his name on the line. It's all, nothing's ever personal. It's just that, in the heat of the moment, you got to get the food up on time. It's got to be caramelized, it's got to be cooked properly. And if it's not, it hits the fan and, ruins the whole service, slows everything down. So,
what were the sort of positives or benefits coming out of a really busy kitchen and attention to detail like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's speed. It's about the food being perfect. It helped me with, I guess, just with flavour, like how to braise vegetables properly, how to caramelize and infuse flavours, texture, and just cooking everything perfectly. Like he taught me the real basics. It was great to have that time with him in the kitchen. And back then he was actually in the kitchen quite a bit as well, which is awesome to spend some time side by side and learning from the best.
How did you become a private chef and tour with people like Sir Paul McCartney and Elton John and Madonna and Beyonce, all of these people touring the world?
I was actually, after the time with Gordon, I needed some time out. So me and 7 friends, we bought a big van and left London at the start of summer with about 75 of the vans. And we drove around Europe for 4 months just to do some exploring. And along that journey, I met a guy, Rowan Wills, who had just started working for this agency. It was basically an Australian lady, Kim Davenport, started making sandwiches for Paul McCartney back in the day, back in the 80s, and just formed this amazing catering company. But yeah, he told me he just was about to go on tour with Ben Harper, and he gave me a phone number. And I thought maybe I could do that for just a few weeks just before I go, because I was meant to go back and work with Gordon. We were meant to go to New York and open up a restaurant there, but I thought maybe I'll just do a quick tour for a couple of weeks, get some cash, and then go back to New York. So I went in for an interview, did the MTV Music Awards in Scotland, and things went really well there. And then I got asked to do the Beyonce tour. That was in the end of October 2003. So I was like, why not? Can't turn that down.
Well, you've cooked for flexitarians, Rihanna, Beyonce, Madonna, Elton John. Tell us a bit about what a flexitarian is, and do you have any stories of some of the things that you've cooked or experiences with these celebrities?
Yeah. I mean, I guess flexitarians they're not totally plant based, but they're just trying to lower their meat intake. Working with Rod Stewart, he wasn't like a huge meat eater, but working with Pink, should still eat a lot of plant-based food as well.
Do you have any stories you can share of cooking for any of these celebrities while you're on tour and what it was like? One time when I learned a dish which I first created for Rod Stewart, which is like a spicy tuna tartare and a rice cake. I learned it from a restaurant that I went to in Denver, and then I actually got asked by Paul to make a sushi buffet for 300 people when we were in Russia. So that was a plant-based sushi buffet for 300 people in Moscow. So that's where I first created the tuna tartare, the plant-based tuna tartare, which is on the Flave menu. I basically figured out how to make tuna using tofu and tomato, seaweed, beetroot powder, a lot of spices. So just got to recreate the colour, texture, flavour of fish, basically. Did you have much to do with these artists on a day-to-day basis when you're on tour with them?
Yeah. I mean, like we were cooking there. Often, they would often come in the afternoon. They come into the kitchen. Often I'll be cooking away and look behind me, and Paul McCartney's standing there, and he's like, "Oh, we're in the best kitchen in the world," and he's just kind of watching me cook, which is pretty surreal. Often they would they'd often request different meals. Like something that some comfort food. Rihanna would request some food from Barbados, like plantain chips, and I'd kind of learn how to make those. And
what brought you back to Australia?
I was in LA for about 3 years before I've been back here about 11 years now. But I think just I was traveling for about 10 years, kind of nonstop, just living out of a suitcase and living in hotels. And it was amazing. But for the last few years, I thought it was time just to come back, and I'd like to start my own restaurant. And I came back to Sydney just for a holiday, and another friend who I've been touring with, Patrick Kilalea, we always talked about coming back to Australia and opening up a restaurant together. So he came back a few years before me, and then I decided to move to Sydney, move to Bondi.
We're going to get to Flave in a minute, but what were you doing in the lead up to that, with that exploration that you've had into plant-based food?
I've been touring for almost 10 years by that stage. I moved to Bondi like 10 years ago. Pat was helping up a friend of ours, a restaurant called Panama House on Bondi Road about 10 years ago. It's like a Central American style food. We've done a lot of that. I've been all through Central America. Me and Pat were in Mexico together. We kind of brought all the knowledge that would from our travels, and also I spent all the time in Southern America as well, then Louisiana. So we created the menu there. We were both there for a couple of years. We weren't owners in the restaurant. We were just executive chefs, designed the menu, and then we decided to open up our own place, which was called 2 and 12. It's like an American style smokehouse, which we opened up in Bondi, which we ran together for about a year, and then we ended up turning that restaurant into a business called Milky Lane.
The story behind Flave is well, it's not a great one, but it's a success out of adversity. Owners Samantha and Stuart Cook. Can you tell us a little bit about how Flave came about?
Yeah. So Stu and Sam came up with the concept while they were on a year-long honeymoon around the world, and Sam, Stu's wife, she ate a dodgy coconut when she was in Central America, and it was that bad that she got heart problems, and she had to get airlifted to hospital. It was a really close call, but the doctor put her on a plant-based diet. And they just noticed traveling around the world, there was never any good plant-based options. It was always like an afterthought. It was just a side salad or just plain pasta. And then, Stu's background is at Zimbiro, so he took them from 2 restaurants to 160 restaurants. So he's great at expansion and in the restaurant game. And, so they were like, we need to create a plant-based business that we can give good, healthy, tasty food to the world. And so then they came back to Australia and they started looking for a chef. And and then I ran into Stu actually with at a meeting at a restaurant. He pulled me aside. He actually asked me, "Do you know of any chefs that aren't plant-based themselves? They still eat meat, but they specialize in plant-based cooking?" And I was like, I could potentially help. I could maybe consult and do some menu stuff. He's like, yeah, well, what experience do you have? I'm like, well, I trained with Gordon Ramsay, and I spent about 7 years working with Paul McCartney cooking plant-based food, and then just kind of dropped the mic. So I was basically the first chef that he talked to, and so we just kind of hit it off, and I started writing the menu for Flave. Kind of designed it all pretty much from my kitchen in Tamarama, and originally it was just going to be a consulting role, but the more I did it, the more I enjoyed it, and decided to come on full time.
Are there any dishes that you can tell us about that you've created that sort of stand out and epitomise sort of what Flave is about and what you're about?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, one of my favourite dishes is Indonesian rendang. I was working out in Indonesia for 6 months in a private surf resort. I just had a break from touring for a while and worked in this luxury surf resort for 6 months with no cell reception, no internet, and just perfect waves. And I learned how to make an amazing rendang. I mean, we'd make it on a cauldron out back and be cooking it all day. I'd go for a surf, come back and stir it. But there's so much flavour in it. Traditionally, it's made with beef, and then I made it for the first time for Stu and Sam in Tama using plant-based meat substitute. It came out amazing. Still got flavour and texture. So that's one of the amazing dishes which is on the Flave menu.
Tell us about putting together a menu like this. And plant-based diets are more common these days. What's your approach? Is there a consideration to try and replace meat, or just create the best dish?
I think like variety, like on the Flave menu, we've got 6 burgers and we've got 6 bowls. It's all from countries around the world as well. So you've got a bit of everything. We've got some like a classic Flave burger is your classic kind of in-and-out style cheeseburger with like a plant-based beef patty, a Bud's patty, and just lettuce, tomato. Then we've got the Epic, which is like your Texan-style barbecue burger with a plant-based smoked brisket, plant-based bacon, not mushroom, chipotle aioli. It's quite a big meaty burger. But then we've got the whole food options where I've got a Japanese-style burger, which has got the plant-based tuna, which the one I designed in Russia. But that's like a whole food style burger, which is made out of tofu and tomato, and it's got an edamame rice patty inside. So we just try and just try and have a variety of different options and different dishes from around the world. So
as this plant-based focus that you have for a career, has it changed your perceptions of food and your own diet?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like for instance, you have one of our burgers, and like traditionally, you eat a burger, you just feel weighted down, you feel heavy. You have one of the Flave burgers, and you actually, you don't get that feeling. You still feel light, and you can still do things, and you don't feel weighted down. But you haven't sacrificed, the flavour and taste. It still tastes like an amazing beef burger. We get a lot, like we've had like Argentinian meat eaters come in and not realise it's a plant-based burger, and they've like added like the cauliflower, southern fried cauliflower, which they thought was fried chicken, and added like the brisket, and that the waitress asked how the burgers were, and they're like, yeah, it's amazing, it's one of the best burgers we had, and they're like, it's plant-based. They're like, no, we're from Argentina, we know what. We know our meats. We know it's definitely not plant-based, and like sometimes you got to convince people. But I think I think as soon as they try the burger and they realise like you don't have to eat meat, to be satisfied. I mean, even we're just trying to, even if you don't stop totally, you can even just like lower your meat intake. Even if you eat Flave twice or plant-based twice a week, if we can get everyone in the world to eat plant-based twice a week, it's going to have a huge impact on the environment.
Tell us about desserts, because often pastry is very reliant on animal products. How did you approach desserts and have is there some wins there that you can tell us about of the dishes you've created?
Yeah, I've come up with quite a few tasty ones. I mean, I'm not no pastry chef myself, but I can figure out the different textures and flavors. And I've made a sweet potato brownie, which is it's pretty good. So it's you're using the natural sugars from roasted sweet potato. You cook the sweet potato when it's skinned, so it caramelizes under, and get those natural sugars coming out. And use Venezuelan cacao chocolate, fold that through, and baked off with a chocolate ganache. Finished off with some berries and some whipped cream. But yeah, there's some made like I've got an amazing whipped cream product made out of chickpeas. It just tastes like cream. I've got I do a banoffee pie, so I've recreated the Biscoff biscuit, but I've made it. Also, all our desserts are also gluten free, which helps a lot. So I do a banoffee pie. So I've recreated like the Biscoff biscuit and made that into the base. And then we've made a vegan dulce de leche. Out of coconut and coconut sugar, your fresh banana and the whipped cream. You got the banana chips and Venezuelan chocolate on top. We've also got a sticky date pudding, which is killer as well, with a salted caramel sauce on top. Yeah.
It wasn't all that long ago that being vegetarian or vegan was ridiculed. We've evolved a lot since then. How do you see where we are at the moment? Through the clientele that you have, but just generally as a chef as well?
Yeah, I think it's definitely come a long way, especially in Australia. I mean, when I was working over in the States years ago, there was a bunch of different plant-based meat alternatives. But especially I've just noticed the last couple of years, there's a lot more brands coming to Australia. There's some amazing products coming out which you wouldn't even know. There's some amazing chicken products and amazing beef products, and it's definitely come a long way.
You've got the Newtown store and Bondi soon to open, and more on the horizon. Tell us about sort of where the business is at and what the plans are over the next year.
The plans to do 1,000 restaurants over the next 10 years, which sounds pretty ambitious, but I think we can do it. We can definitely do it. So yeah, we're looking at potentially we've potentially got something lined up at the end of the year overseas, and then hopefully get over to America next year, and I think it's really going to take off.
How do you get the wheels in motion with such a big goal like that? Stu's got some amazing contacts around the world. We'll be looking at selling master franchises, overseas, and but the way I've set everything up, I've got like a kitchen, like a production kitchen here over in Ryde, which basically makes all my recipes exactly how I would make them, but they can do 100, 200 kilo batches at a time. And then, so that way the food tastes exactly how I would cook it. But it's all going to be, completely quality control across the board. Then it'll get sent out to all the restaurants. So you just got to, I learn a lot with all my catering and just other businesses on how to, not compromise the quality, and just you just got to think big. Yeah. You're making an amazing impact in a space that's still evolving quite rapidly at the moment and changing people's perceptions. What do you love about what you do?
Just reducing people's meat intake. I think, and I just love, seeing the looks on people's faces when they try a burger or eat a bowl and just can't believe it's plant based, and then come back for more. We have quite a lot of repeat customers coming back, and some people are coming 2 or 3 times a week. It's just it's great to see people enjoying my food.
Well, Scott, it's great to catch up with you and see what you're up to. The pretty ambitious goals. Very much looking forward to seeing that come to fruition. Please keep in touch, and we'll catch up again soon.
Will do. Awesome. Thanks for having me.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we take a deep dive into the lives of the incredible people who ply their trade in the food and hospitality sector. Special thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Follow us on Instagram at Deep in the Weeds Podcast, or email us at podcast@deepintheweeds.com.au. Stay safe and be well.